Teen Titans, a quartet of towering talent.
Hi, this is Eric from Longbox Review at longboxreview.com. This episode, I wanted to focus on one of my very favorite comic book titles, the new Teen Titans. And despite the fact that that little introduction at the start of the show is from the 1967 cartoon featuring the Teen Titans, it is an anniversary of sorts for the Teen Titans in general. So as most people know, if you are interested in the Titans, I'll just call them that for now, the proto Teen Titans first appeared in Brave and the Bold issue number 54 in 1964. And I call them proto Teen Titans because that particular issue featured just three characters, Robin, Kid Flash, and Aqualad. And they were never called the Teen Titans in that issue. However, in the following year, Brave and the Bold number 60, which is cover dated January 66, but according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, it was released in November 1965. So here it is, 2015, and although I've missed the release date anniversary, it is still 50 years of Teen Titans. Now it is also, let's flash forward several decades, well, a few decades anyway, and we'll get to the focus of this episode, which is the new Teen Titans, which issue number 1, cover dated November 1980, but came out in August 1980. So this is the 35th year anniversary of the new Teen Titans debut. So we got two somewhat significant anniversaries for the Titans. And I wanted to just talk about that a little bit, my experience with and my love about and for the new Teen Titans. So this will be a bit of a retrospective. But first, I would be remiss if I neglected to mention that you need to go, if you're a fan of the Titans, the new Teen Titans, you need to go check out the podcast, The Tower. This is an examination of the new Teen Titans from the perspective of Peter Rios, who has appeared a few times on my show. And he is starting at the beginning and working through not only the issues of the new Teen Titans from the get-go, but also just other things that appeal to him and are of interest to fans of the new Teen Titans. So check that out if you're interested in hearing more about and hearing more in-depth things about the new Teen Titans. And you can do that by going to thedailyrios.com, and you can look for the posts that are tagged Tower, and I'll have links in the show notes for the stuff that I've mentioned here. So go check out Peter's podcast about the new Teen Titans, The Tower. So as I said, the new Teen Titans debuted in issue number 1 in 1980. However, that was not their first appearance in DC Comics publishing history. That actually was in DC Comics Presents number 26, which came out, I don't know if it came out in July 1980 or it was cover dated July 1980. Either way, it came out in 1980. So it was one of those, as DC used to do, these special 16-page previews that they would stick in the middle of just some comic. It occurs to me now that I'm actually somewhat intrigued by how DC decided to put these, or what issues to put these previews into. So why DC Comics Presents? And that particular issue featured a team up with Superman and Green Lantern, which is why I bought it. The cover of that issue has Green Lantern. I think it's shown that he's being controlled by an alien force, but Green Lantern has created this huge chunk of kryptonite and is slowly killing Superman with it. And I was a big fan of the DC Comics Presents issues, and I also liked Green Lantern at the time. So it was a no-brainer for me to get that issue when it came out. So I did not buy that issue because of the new Teen Titans preview in it, but it was a wonderful happenstance because once I read that preview, I remember this distinctly. I was sitting on my couch reading this comic, and I thought to myself after I read this, I want to read this. So, I knew it was coming out soon. I knew it was going to be a new #1 issue. And I thought, hey, this would be a good way to start reading a brand new comic from the get-go, featuring some interesting characters. And to me, the only character that I knew really was Robin, maybe Wonder Girl. I'm trying to remember, because this is 35 years ago now. I'm trying to remember if I really knew who the Teen Titans were. I do recall seeing on the stands at a local corner grocery store that I would go to. It was near my house. They had some comics there, not too many, but I would go there to get some comics sometimes. And so I distinctly remember seeing the final issue of the Teen Titans run. I think it's number 53 that came out in 1978. Now, I didn't buy that issue, but I just remember that cover, which has the Teen Titans duking it out with their adult mentors on the cover. And so while it was the final issue of the Teen Titans run for a while, it was a flashback tale that told the secret origin of the Teen Titans getting together, which is interesting because I'll go back even further. So go back to that Brave and the Bold number 60 issue, where it's the first time that the group is called Teen Titans, and Wonder Girl is just there all of a sudden for some reason. It's never explained in that issue. At least that I can recall, as to how she got together with Robin, Kid Flash, and Aqualad to become the Teen Titans. So anyway, I like I said, I distinctly remember wanting to get this series, and I told myself, okay, I gotta look for this. I gotta find this issue. And this is, you have to remember, for those younger readers out there, there were no comic book shops at that time. At least, definitely not where I lived. The direct market was just starting out about that time, I believe. Anyway, so how did I get comics back then if there were no comic shops? Well, you would go into convenience stores, like Circle K. You would go into grocery stores. There were a couple in my hometown where I'd get comics, but you were lucky if you could get consecutive issues, because the people who, I don't know, I honestly don't know the inside out of this, but it seemed like that the people who stocked the comics, who ordered the comics, maybe didn't care whether things showed up consecutively or, how many issues and all that stuff. Anyway, long story short, I never got that #1 issue. So in the time between DC Comics Presents number 26, like I said, which is July 1980, I'm assuming that's the cover date, and then November 1980 cover date. So a few months down the road, New Teen Titans #1 comes out. I never saw it. So I guess out of sight, out of mind, because it's not until 2 years later where I spy an issue of the New Teen Titans in a drugstore that I found had comics, or that sold comics. And that was kind of my go-to place at that time. And I happened to see an issue of the New Teen Titans. It was number 23 on the stand. So this is June of '82. And this is number 23 was my very first issue of the New Teen Titans that I bought, and this is the one that features Coriander Starfire being tortured on the cover by her sister, Commander, also known as Blackfire. And this is the story in which the Titans go out into space and to rescue Coriander, which is a really good story. But that was my first issue, so I missed the previous 22 issues of this comic that I absolutely love to this day. Of course, from then on, I was hooked. I bought every monthly issue since number 23, and then started my quest for back issues. And they were hard to find, guys. Like I said, in my little town where I grew up, we were lucky enough to have one comic book shop, if you can even call it that, in the area. And so I could only get so many back issues from that particular shop because they only had so many. I bought as many as I could. The very first one that I got was issue number 4. And that issue, and that's the issue that featured the first confrontation between the New Teen Titans and the Justice League of America, which is pretty much why I bought that first back issue as opposed to any other. There's a whole story about that particular issue, number 4, that I told on an episode of The Gutters, which is the comic book horror stories. That's from July 2015 when I released that. So if you want to know that backstory, go listen to that particular episode. And so over the years, I just kept trying to get all of the previous back issues. Of significance, I remember distinctly paying. I found issue number 1, and I had a pretty good job at that time for the age that I was back then. I actually don't remember what year that was that I bought this, but I bought number 1 for $25. And that was the most at that time, and probably for a long time after that, that I had spent on any single issue of a comic. And I was so willing to part with $25. And that was a lot of money, guys, especially for me. I had an allowance that my parents gave me for doing chores around the house. I got $10 a month, and this is in the 1980s, all the way up through when I graduated high school in the late 80s. I got $10 a month, and I got a job. Anything that I earned from other jobs supplemented my comic buying desires. So I had the $25 and I spent it. I remember the guy who sold it to me. He's the same guy, a different location at this point, but he's the same guy that had the comic book shop that I mentioned earlier. This was called Kelly's Comics. And the guy, the owner is Kelly. And I remember he had issue number 1 up on the wall of his new location. And I walked in and I said, I want New Teen Titans number 1. And you should have seen the look on his face. He was very reluctant to sell that comic to me. He even said as much to me. I think mostly because he was a fan of the comic too. And so he just, for whatever reason, he had it on sale, and maybe he had it priced at $25 to kind of prevent people from buying it. So maybe I spent a little more than I needed to on that issue. But I tell you what, the day that I bought New Teen Titans number 1, I remember feeling really giddy, like I had accomplished something. That's partially how this series has affected me over the years. So anyway, so I continued to buy the back issues. I don't remember how long now it took me to get all of those previous 22 issues. And then once I got all the back issues, like I said, I stuck with it. from the change from New Teen Titans to Tales of the Teen Titans to New Teen Titans Volume 2 to New Titans, and then a lot of the other variations that came after that. So the Titans, other volumes of the Teen Titans. I even tried Team Titans, at least that first issue. So as you can probably guess, I'm a big fan of the Titans in general. Let's see, but I did, at a certain point, I did stop my subscription of the Titans series. I think it was called New Titans at that time. Pretty sure. I did stop before it got canceled. I think this was about the time when Arsenal took over leadership of the Titans within that story, or within that. I think it was issue 114, 115, something like that. I found out not too long after that, about a year and a half later, that they were canceling it. And so I think, I don't remember, but I think I bought the 4 or 5 issue ending storyline. It was called Meltdown. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did, because I was reading it going, I don't know what's going on. The previous 10 or so issues, I had no idea what was going on. Anyway, so that started another round of back issue bin diving so that I could get all those other issues that I missed. Turns out it didn't really matter to me in the end. I read them, but man, by that point in the New Teen Titans history, or at least in the comic in general, I wasn't all that interested in the stories that were being told. And truth be told, it was really after the Titans Hunt storyline, which ended in issue 84, that I kind of feel like that the best of the Titans had already come and gone. So I wasn't all that keen on what came after. They had the Team Titans from the future, the baby wildebeest that showed up, the Russian cyborg story bit, Dark Raven, all that stuff just did not really interest me. And so I kind of ended my Titans relationship, sort of. So as you can imagine right now, with what DC is putting out as far as the 12-issue limited series Titans Hunt, I'm very excited about this possibility of seeing the New Teen Titans or some variation of the New Teen Titans, or even just Teen Titans. I don't care. Either one might be getting shoehorned back into the New 52, because they were hinted at the beginning of the New 52, and then that was taken away. But I'm hoping that they through this story, this limited series, that they're bringing that concept back. Although it doesn't really matter, because it's not like we're going to have the New Teen Titans reappear in the New 52 the way things are going. So you might be asking yourselves, or I'll ask for you, why the New Teen Titans? Why did I love that concept, that group, so much? Well, as I said, it was a new superhero group that I could get into at the ground floor, if you will. There were a bunch of new characters. I was at that point, I believe I was familiar with, like I said, obviously Robin, Wonder Girl. The rest of them, they were new to me. Even though Changeling was previously known as Beast Boy, I don't think I knew that at that time. I think through reading the New Teen Titans, I discovered that he was Beast Boy, and that this character Beast Boy had appeared in the Doom Patrol and all that stuff. So and of course the 1970s Teen Titans. What else? So I really liked Marv Wolfman's soap opera-esque storytelling, where we had you had the main plot, whatever the adventure of the month was, but also these subplots. So up to that point, I cannot remember any comics that I was reading where these subplots would be threaded throughout multiple issues. So it was really done in one stories that I was used to reading until I got to the New Teen Titans, and we get these subplots running through issue to issue, year over year. And I really like that. I really enjoyed that storytelling technique. And of course, it goes without saying that the art of the incredible George Perez is a huge, huge part of why I really love the New Teen Titans comic. George's work on that series, while a little rough at first, once you get into the second and especially the years after that, his work is just impeccable. It's just so detail-oriented, distinctive. The faces that he draws, the body types, the hairstyles, the clothing. Nobody else, at least that I was reading, the comics that I was reading at that time, was doing the kind of artwork that Mr. Perez was doing. So both of those guys were a huge inspiration on me as someone, as a fledgling writer and wannabe comic book artist. So of course, the stories that I wrote about my own characters, I wrote basically clones of the New Teen Titans. I wrote in a style similar to Marv's plotting, the subplotting elements that I talked about. And of course, I tried to draw just like Mr. Perez. So, and that's a type of artwork style that I continue to like to this day. I found myself, because of his work on New Teen Titans, I found myself drawn to artists who drew more, I'll say, realistically, if you can even say that about superhero comics. I'm thinking of Neil Adams stuff and other artists like that, where there's a sense of realism in their work. And of course, I'll have to spotlight this particular character, Dick Grayson. It was a huge reason why I love the New Teen Titans. What Dick Grayson was shown going through during especially those first few years of the New Teen Titans, just the pressure, and this is just my interpretation of the things that happened that I read. Just the pressure that this poor guy felt about just growing up in general, moving out of his quote unquote dad's shadow, escaping the from under the shadow of the Batman, if you will. Just trying to do a good job as being a leader and a superhero, and just a boyfriend for that matter. I really identified with him, being a fledgling teenager myself at the time of the series. So in 1980, at the end of 1980, I turned 12, and so now flash forward a couple of years, so now I'm almost 14 when I pick up that copy of issue number 23. So I kind of felt like I was growing up with Dick Grayson during this comic. Now, of course, I think that Dick Grayson was portrayed as a bit older than I was by at least a few years in that series, but still, I just felt that kinship, I guess, with a character. And there's a few particular stories or storylines that feature Dick Grayson that I don't know. I just remember feeling like I really identified with this guy. There was something about him that made me want to be like him, and also I just felt like him to some degree. And I realize I'm repeating myself now, so I will move on. I just felt like the New Teen Titans. Just the series itself had entertaining stories with really interesting characters. Let's see. I really liked Changeling. first of all, I want to say I know Beast Boy is in vogue now and has been for quite a while, but I really like the idea. Once I understood the history, once I knew the history of the character, I really liked how they changed him from like the kind of the stupid sounding name of Beast Boy to Changeling. And I really liked his personality. Oh, wait, which is weird. Go back to that, the name thing. It's weird because that whole boy, lass, girl, lad thing from the Legion of Superheroes is one of the things that I love about the Legion of Superheroes. So I'm not sure why I felt like Beast Boy was dumb and the Legion names weren't. But that's a discussion for another episode. A little teaser there involving the Legion. But I really liked Gar Logan's humorous aspects. You know, he was the annoying younger person in the group, but he provided some wit and levity to the situation. But there was some depth to him that they showed oftentimes, especially when he felt like his friends and loved ones were put in danger, especially if it's because of him. There were a few times where he got very serious and rivaled Robin in his angstiness. And then you had his friendship with Cyborg, Vic Stone, who has a series out right now. Vic was not a character I really identified with all that much, I have to say. He was portrayed as an athletic guy. That's not to say that I didn't enjoy Cyborg's overall contributions to the title and the stories. I just never really connected with him. Same with Raven. I recognized her. I recognize her as an integral part of the group. She is the reason that the new Teen Titans were brought together. She was more of an introvert and had more of a shut-in personality than even I cared for. And I was always the shy introvert growing up. So you would think I would have identified with her a little bit more than I did, but for some reason I did not. Although I did have a dream one time where, and this is how, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this. This is how much I was into these characters, apparently, because my subconscious was working overtime. I had a dream featuring Robin and Raven getting together as a couple. You know, nothing X-rated, not even R-rated. They were just, generic boyfriend and girlfriend. And so I kind of wanted to see that story show up in the pages of New Teen Titans, where maybe those two got together instead of Coriander. I know, right? How stupid. They kind of did hint at it. There's one particular issue where Raven felt something for Dick, but it didn't. It was treated as more of a. Well, it was a particular plot of one particular issue, and then it was quickly laughed off, literally on the panel. So anyway, there's that. And speaking of Coriander, she's the beautiful cheesecake of the series. Even though, despite what I just said about Dick and Raven, I really did like the relationship between Dick and Corey and how that grew to the point where they almost got married. That's towards the end of my experience with the series. That didn't work out, of course. That would have been interesting, though, to see how that would have worked out. Of course, we do get a hint of that, so to speak, in the Kingdom Come miniseries, where in that alternate version of the future, Dick and Corey do get married and have a daughter. But we really don't get to see all that. See, Kid Flash, I always liked more for his costume than anything else. I mean, super speed is, kind of neat, I guess. And it's certainly very popular right now based on the Flash TV series. But the Flash was never a character I really cared about all that much. And Kid Flash was just the younger version of him. And I know what you're saying to yourself right now, but Eric, that's Robin. He's just a younger version of Batman. I disagree with that. I think that's been established many times over the years that Dick is not Bruce, and so there's enough variation there that Dick Grayson is still much more of an interesting character to me than even Bruce Wayne. And I think that even Marv Wolfman had difficulties with Kid Flash because he seems to just take on certain personality traits that we'd never seen before. I'm thinking of the issue, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but just the issue where the Russian Starfire appears, where suddenly Wally is this ultra-conservative, anti-Russian person. So anyway, I love the costume though. That when they changed Kid Flash from the clone red suit that his mentor wore to that more yellow than red costume, I don't know. I just love that costume design. And I want to say I thought Neil Adams had designed that, but I can't find the reference for that. So if anyone out there knows who designed Kid Flash's costume, would you please let me know? I'd appreciate that. Let's see, who am I missing? Wonder Girl. She was not a character that I knew all that much, but what I did like about her was the friendship between her and Dick Grayson. It was through that relationship that I really came to love Donna. And in another alternate version of the Teen Titans, I could totally see Dick and Donna getting together as a couple. But of course, in this continuity that I'm referring to, they were more like brother and sister, and I really enjoyed that. There was this really good storyline in the Volume 2, the Baxter Run, as we affectionately call it, where Jason Todd as Robin shows up for some adventures with them, and Donna is feeling a little stressed and starts referring to Jason Todd Robin as Dick Grayson. So it's obvious that Donna had a really strong connection with Dick and was really missing him at that point in the series. Let's see, what else about the new Teen Titans? Oh, the great villains. There's some really great villains that were introduced in this series. I already mentioned Commander, aka Blackfire, Coriander's sister. She was particularly brutal and soulless in a way. I seem to recall that later on in the series that she and Corey have a reconciliation, and in fact, Commander Blackfire ends up ruling Tamaran, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so she has a bit of a change of heart. Let's see, who else? Deathstroke, obviously. I mean, he appeared in issue number 2, I believe, of the series, and he's still a character that's going strong. He's appeared on Arrow, so this guy who has basically he's Batman on steroids and wields a lot of weapons and has a really cool mask design. Is still going strong 35 years later. Probably not going as strong these next two villains, but I really enjoyed them, especially during the run of this series. Brother Blood was one. That guy was just, boy, talk about someone who can manipulate a situation to his advantage. There was a storyline involving him and that was and the media. So he had Bethany Snow was a character that showed up in the Titans. She was a TV news personality or some sort of TV personality. And turns out that she was an acolyte of Brother Blood, I believe, if I remember correctly. And that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about her involvement in the series, because it really took a look at how media, well, one, how the media perceives these superheroes, and two, just the representation of media in the comic book, in the title itself. Mr. Perez loved to draw television screens as sort of panels within panels during the run of the series. So that was kind of like a signature of his, to put that kind of stuff in there as a storytelling shortcut, if you will. Let's see. Back to the villains, though. The Fearsome Five. Dr. Light, Simon, Mammoth, Shimmer. Oh, gosh. And Gizmo. And these characters appear now in the Teen Titans. Was it Teen Titans Go that's currently on TV right now? I get the two animated series mixed up in my brain. Anyway, so those characters I really enjoyed. There's been a few other characters that have come and gone within the Fearsome Five, but that original incarnation, I really enjoyed them quite a bit. So I've mentioned a couple storylines. I just wanted to run down a few of my favorite stories or favorite issues of the new Teen Titans run. Starting with number 8, which was called A Day in the Lives. And this was after the first big introductory story arc where the Titans go up against Trigon, and you notice I didn't include him in my list of villains, just because Trigon's just this generic sort of ultra villain. He's the scourge of many universes, many dimensions. And he comes to destroy the DC universe as it was back then. He tried that a couple times and he was defeated. So this god, he's essentially a god, and he's defeated by a bunch of teenagers. So I don't think of him as really that good of a villain. Anyway, so this Day in the Lives was after that. So you get all this build up of defeating this big villain. And then there was a couple issues, 6 and 7 in there, where we find Titan's Tower. That's where the Fearsome Five show up, I believe, initially in the series. But then we get this nice breather, this breathing space, this refrain from action. And more importantly, it was an examination of the secret identities for the ones that had it, or at least the characters in their downtime. So I really enjoyed that. I just remember it having a great impact on me as a young reader, and thinking, wow, I've never read anything like that before. Now, of course, we've seen that kind of story. I'm sure it was in there in comics before, but it was the first time that I encountered it, and I've seen it many times since. But that was my first exposure to it. I already talked about this a little bit. Number 18 of the series, featuring the original Starfire, the Russian Starfire. Wow, that was a hell of a story, featuring and just the ending, just the kicker of an ending. So it appears that Starfire, well, I should call him the Russian Starfire, comes to America to kill someone, and of course the Titans are like, no, you can't do that. And throw in Wally West being, pro, USA, boo, USSR. His attitude like that, provided the confrontational aspects, political confrontational aspects of the story. And then you find out at the very end that the person that he came to kill, he doesn't end up doing it, spoilers, but this person does die, and you find out that it was his fiancée. It was just a real gut punch of a story. And it also added, I didn't know this at the time, but issue number 18 was also in the incarnation of the Teen Titans title. That's the issue in which Starfire first appeared. So that was a nice little nod that they did in the new Teen Titans. The New Teen Titans Annual number 2, which was the first appearance of at that time, the new Vigilante. This is the Adrian Chase version, the black and blue jumpsuited version, the guy that would go off and just kill people. I really enjoyed so I think Annual number 2 was the culmination of this long-standing, or I don't know how long it was actually. But it was this plot that was running through several issues of the story where Robin was getting more and more dark, if you will. He was moving to the dark side, I guess, a little bit. And while Dick would never cross that line and kill anybody, he was being a little more Batman-esque, if you will, on these organized crime members that were in the story. Basically, Vigilante was influencing Robin towards probably not such a great methodology. But I remember really liking that Annual number 2 in particular. I was in the 9th grade at that time when that issue came out. And we had to do these, I was in speech class, and we had to do a particular speech where we talked about something that was important to us in our lives. And I brought that issue. So imagine, I'm a something ager, I don't remember how old I was back then. I think that was 1980, I want to say that was 1984. So I was almost 16 at that time. So I'm a 15-year-old comic book nerd. Like I said before, I was really shy, and I get up and I talk about this comic. I'm supposed to talk about this comic for, I think, 15, 20 minutes. And all I remember about that is seeing the look on there's a couple girls in the class, and I wasn't interested in them in particular, but just the looks on their faces as I was talking about this comic book and how much it meant to me, and the looks on their faces that ran the gamut of disinterested to why is he talking about a stupid comic book? And I am probably really projecting my own insecurities onto the faces of those girls. But I remember cutting my speech a little short because I just got so nervous being up there in front of everybody. But that was a big moment for me to get up in front of all those kids in the class and talk about comic books and talk about that one in particular. So let's see, what else? The New Teen Titans Batman and the Outsiders crossover. This was in issue 37 of the New Teen Titans and issue number 5 of Batman and the Outsiders. That was awesome. There's one particular scene in which Batman basically tries to take over both groups and give orders, and Robin's having none of this. He basically tells Batman, you're really good at being Batman and being a partner, but you know next to nothing about being a team leader. And I have years of experience here doing this. And to Batman's credit, he agrees and lets Robin kind of take over. And I just really love that. That just showed some growth, not only in terms of what Robin was like, but also Batman. Unfortunately, I think the Batman writers either didn't know about this wonderful forward momentum in Dick and Bruce's relationship, because it seemed like I saw this conversation between those two characters again and again and again. Oh, I'm sorry, not that particular conversation, but just the idea that Batman is he's the Bat God, so he's always right, and Dick Grayson is always second fiddle and all this stuff. So anyway, disappointing, but I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that conversation in that whatever issue that was for what it was. one of these days I'm going to do an actual spotlight on those two particular issues and talk to you more in detail about them. Number 38 of the New Teen Titans, Who is Donna Troy? This is probably my favorite single issue of of the Titans run, of all the Titans run, all the Titans titles. So this is shortly before Donna Troy gets married to her boyfriend at that time, Terry Long, and it's really important that she find out basically who she is, where she comes from, what her origin is, because at the time, Wonder Girl's origin is that Wonder Woman found her in a burning apartment, and she has no idea who her real parents were. So, as a favor to her, as prompted by Terry, before they get married, Terry asks Robin to look into this. So he does this, and mostly it's Dick Grayson doing detective work. It's not Robin. I mean, he shows up as Robin in the beginning and the end, I think, but mostly it's just Dick Grayson doing this, and then just the part where Dick Grayson finds out Donna's history and where she comes from, and the people that knew her when she was young. It was a very emotional issue, and it was really good. I really enjoyed that. I really like the personal, emotional, gut-wrenching, whether in a positive or even negative way. I really like those stories. Speaking of gut-wrenching, who can think of the New Teen Titans or be a fan of the New Teen Titans run and not talk about the Terra storyline that culminated in the Judas Contract? Now, this is probably my favorite overall storyline of the New Teen Titans. Wow. Just bringing in this new character, Terra, joining the group, and then you find out I can't remember the issue, you find out at the end of one of the issues that Terra is a plant put there by Deathstroke. So we are in the late 30s, early 40s when Terra shows up. I can't remember the issue. And the Judas Contract ends, I think, with issue number 44, and then the annual that follows. You get a good chunk of issues where this Terra character is ingratiating herself to, not just to the New Teen Titans, but to us. And then you find out that she's this sociopath, and the impact of that on Gar Logan too it was really good storytelling. That's also the Judas Contract. Of course, you get the new character Jericho coming into it, and of course, you have Nightwing debut. So that was really cool. In the I mentioned the Baxter run. This is the New Teen Titans Volume 2, where the issues were printed on the higher quality Baxter paper, and that's when you get Trigon's return. That was an interesting storyline. I mostly for the art though, because Perez inked himself on at least one issue, if not a few of them. And so you get a little different look to the series. But more importantly, there was a couple issues there where they used George's tight pencils instead of inking over them, both for dramatic effect. The Titans go into this other realm, this otherworldly realm, and so the look of it is altered. The look of the comic is altered by allowing George's pencils to be used instead of them being inked. And then there's the dark mirror image evil type characters that show up. It's an illusion, but they show up, the evil versions of the characters themselves, and those were all drawn using the pencils, and that was a really cool effect too. Other favorite storylines real quick. Who is Wonder Girl? So after the crisis happened and Wonder Woman didn't appear until later. She first in post-crisis, she first appeared in Legends, I believe. So this is after some of the heroes were already established. So that kind of screwed up Donna's history overall in the DC universe. So they had to rewrite that, sort of like how they did in the Legion with Superboy. And I'm sure I will eventually talk about that because that's one of my favorite storylines as well in the Legion. But they did the Who is Wonder Girl, and that tied her to the Titans of Myth more than with the Amazons. So so Wonder Girl became Troy eventually, or Troya, depending on how you pronounce it. There was also A Lonely Place of Dying. That was the crossover with Batman. This was after the death of Jason Todd, and you get Tim Drake coming in as the new Robin. And then finally, Titans Hunt, not to be confused with the the limited series that's currently being published in 2015 in the New 52 universe, but this is the storyline Titans Hunt, which for me was the beginning of the end of my relationship with this title. Oh, and I should mention, since I'm talking about Titans Hunt, who was it that did? Was it Tom Grummett on art? So obviously Perez did not do all of the issues of the New Teen Titans or New Titans or whatever. Other artists, filled in for a while. And then Tom Grummett came on. And I always felt that Tom was a nice successor to Perez's work on the book. So I think I mentioned the impact of the New Teen Titans on me in part was Marv and George's work inspired me to write my own stories and to do my own art. I created a teen superhero group, first called the Defenders. I know, original, right? And then changed to the Crusaders because at that time I did not know of a superhero group by that name. So I did this. I wrote the first story, and I wrote these stories longhand, in pencil on lined paper, and I wrote these stories starting in March of 1984, and so that was the same month that Tales of the Teen Titans number 44 came out. And that's the one where I believe Nightwing first appears. So beginning in March 1984, I started writing these stories, and I wrote these stories. I tried to do once a month because I was, sort of trying to mimic comic book release schedules. That didn't always happen. I think the longest run I had was 10 issues. So 10 months in a row, I wrote one story a month. Anyway, I wrote about these characters that I created, partially with my good friend Greg, who has appeared a few times on the podcast. And then I brought in other characters over time as well. And so I did that for a good... Well, let's see, I wrote the last story in 1991. But then I would resurrect some of these characters in my graduate thesis, my creative writing thesis, and that I wrote in 2001. So actually, I guess it was 2001 when I finished that. So anyway, so a good chunk of my time creatively involves these characters inspired by, or in some ways, clones of the New Teen Titans. And I guess I just have to say that the New Teen Titans are a huge part of why I just love teen superheroes in general, as evidenced by the 4-part examination in the podcast feed of Danger Club. And I'm sure I mentioned several times over the years in various episodes of my love for the New Teen Titans. So it's just one of those things that I in fact, I have, not only do I have all of the single issues of the New Teen Titans, I have the 3 volumes, the 3 omnibus volumes, and I started to get the more recent color trade collections as well. Not only that, but I have all of the original Teen Titans issues, some of them not in such great shape, including number 1, which is just beat to hell. Not by me, but... And then, of course, I have the Showcase Presents 2 volumes of the Teen Titans. So, what can I say? I love the Teen Titans. I love the new Teen Titans in particular. I love the Titans. Let's just leave it like that. I love the Titans. And I hope to do in the future more spotlights on the new Teen Titans. Originally, this episode was going to be a duo. Travis was going to join me because he was also a huge fan of the book. And we would read the issues as they came out, and we would talk about them all those years ago. And so I kind of wanted to get him on here to talk about his impressions of the new Teen Titans, and hopefully we'll be able to do that very soon. I hope you enjoyed this stroll down memory lane with me. And if you have any stories you would like to tell or to convey to me about your experience with the new Teen Titans, I really wish you would do that. And you can do so by emailing me at longboxreview@gmail.com. You can also get a hold of me on Twitter at longboxreview. There's also Facebook. If you want to go to longboxreview.com/feedback, there's a whole bunch of ways that you can get a hold of me. And I would really appreciate that. So, until next time, Titans together.